Hey guys, welcome to the Coaching Corner. There is only two coaches on the Coaching Corner this week. Unfortunately, we did have Jess here this week, but we thought we'd save her, us, and you the pain of slow internet connection. And I know how bad that can feel. So unfortunately, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on whether or not you like hearing Jess or from Jess, we just have me and Harry this week. So we're going to have a chat. How are things on your end, Harry? I know you said, well, for us, we're both UK. Well, I keep saying UK, but that's kind of wrong, isn't it? Because it's just England actually that are having their gyms open on Monday, right?
Yeah.
I keep saying UK gyms are opening on Monday, and I'm like, am I just pissing off everyone from like?
I think it's because we're so used to almost being considered borderline racist by saying the word England rather than UK anyway. So, or at least nationalist. So yeah, but yeah, it's English gyms only, isn't it?
But we're both kind of fortunate. You have a full like setup from home, right? Which is, I mean, it's better than what I've got, but we've both got ample to have been doing a lot of damage and a lot of stuff recently. But I know you're really looking forward to getting back into the gym, despite actually going, like, you had a home gym before everything kind of happened. Yeah. What are you looking forward to most?
I'm looking forward to the environment. I've spoken about it on other podcasts, but I didn't realize how much of an influence social facilitation and environment was having on the quality of my training. Like I think I said in the last podcast I was on, that when you're a trainer, you probably have the same as well. Like you have that almost lead from the front mentality. So when you're training in a place where you feel like other people might know you're a trainer or maybe know who you are, and you feel like you're always having to set the standard and set an example in the way that you train. Like because we spend all day, every day, like coaching people and drilling in the importance of like having an awesome technique no matter what they're doing, you feel like your technique has to be a level above that. And I feel like training from home, it's not that my quality is like consciously worse, but I just know that I'm not getting out of the training sessions at home that I was when I was training in a gym, even if that was just because, even if it was just my ego forcing me to train with the best quality ever. But yeah, I'm massively looking forward to it. And there's a social aspect as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like I think I probably have that kind of lead from the front mentality, but differently to you because I solely coach online. And so when I go to the gym, no one knows who the hell I am. Or I don't know, I've been spotted a few times, like a handful of times where people are like, are you that guy that does Revive Stronger? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So there is actually like, I don't know, 3 people who recognize me. And if they're in there, then maybe I have that mentality. But I think mine's driven more so like recording my sets, uploading them on like Instagram. And maybe there's something to that because maybe that's actually really helped me stay a bit more accountable and force a little bit more progression within things. And I think because I'm a competitor, and not to say you're not, like you want to eventually, well, I don't know, actually, maybe that's an update. But I know you were thinking about doing men's physique at some stage, but you haven't done it yet. So it's not like you are a men's physique competitor or whatever, or even bodybuilding. I know you were kind of interested in doing that one time, whereas I'm like, it's very much in the short term that I want to step on stage. So I think some of those things have helped me like be a bit more not progressive, but maybe force myself to really train hard at home. But it has been challenging at times where you just like, you want to sack it off, especially when it's so close and there aren't, I don't know, people there and you're not getting away. So I can see that. On that note though, I want to now hear, what do you have still goals like that in mind? I know we haven't spoken about it in a long time.
To be honest, like I've been thinking about it a lot through lockdown, because obviously the first lockdown happened when we were both prepping. And then I had, like, obviously, like everyone had, pretty much life got turned upside down and had to really think about what things do I need to do right now and what things need to take a back seat. And in prepping was one of those things that needed to take a back seat based on all the other things I had to get control of. And then I did a maintenance phase after that, where I just thought, like, I'm not in a position to make a decision whether I want to continue the prep or not. And I was in a very, very lean condition. I actually uploaded a photo yesterday on Instagram of the condition I was in.
That was that, right?
That was in that maintenance phase, yeah. So I just paused the prep, basically, and I'd been in pause for like a few weeks at that point. And yeah, so I was in a position where I could resume the prep at any point if I needed to. And then it just reached a point where I just felt like the longer I was kind of on pause for, the more I thought, like, I can't see myself competing this year. So then I decided to kind of finish up the maintenance phase and then go on a massing phase. And then my elbow tendonitis decided to flare up in both elbows this time instead of one, which basically meant like I had a few months of like how do I explain it? A few months of like trial and error training where I would essentially like design a mesocycle, try it, elbows would say no, then I'd have to tweak things again. Elbows would say no, tweak things again, elbows would say no. And I felt like I had just a really long time of like really unproductive training where I kept hitting barriers and roadblocks. And then eventually like the elbows sorted themselves out, at least enough to a point where I could actually train productively again. So I've only had, honestly, since then I've had about one productive mesocycle where I've actually felt like I've done every single session and completed the whole thing without having to make some kind of compromise or change based on my elbows, which is great. But, and it's had me thinking a lot as well. Like if I wanted to compete, I don't see myself competing in the medium term, short or medium, definitely not the short term and definitely not the medium term. So if I was to compete at this point based on, I guess the way my training's gone the last year, just the way I've been feeling about training in general is that I wouldn't want to compete in the next 3 years for sure. Like I'd want to focus on just rebuilding my physique to a point where I actually really enjoying the whole process of like being in good shape rather than like attaching goals to it right now. Like my goal right now, when we get back to the gym, is to just ease myself in a very, very, very low volume. When I say low volume, I mean like, cause I'm anticipating, because I'm planning to design the mesocycle mostly around things I haven't had access to recently, because I think that'll help a lot with my elbow tendonitis and stuff. So like a lot more machine-based stuff and dumbbell stuff, less like barbell stuff. And then with that, I'm going to be dropping into a little bit of calorie deficit, just because massing while injured, as you know, doesn't always go very well from a body composition perspective. Like I wasn't in a crazy surplus. I was the primary reason for the surplus, to be honest, was to see if a calorie surplus would speed up the recovery from the elbow tendonitis, and it did. But obviously, like I'm not in the best condition. I'm not in the worst condition, but I definitely feel like I've probably got a couple kilos of muscle I can regain. Just looking at my measurements as well, like I've lost a few centimeters off my arms and stuff like that, which I've spoke to you about before when we were coaching. Like I feel like my arms are quite responsive. When I massively increase the arm volume, I feel like they really blow up. Maybe that's the case for most people, but yeah, I'm just looking to regain some muscle mass. And I'm hoping that training in itself will provide a good enough stimulus for that. And then I'm dropping into a little bit of a deficit as well, just to clean things up. So this first week back is kind of just dipping my toe, first block back is just, I guess, trying to get myself in what I would consider to be a good baseline for moving forward from there, whichever direction I go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I like talking about these things because I think it's relatable, like to other people, and that they may have gone through a similar kind of, they wanted to compete and then they had some setbacks, and then it's just about, we always talk about it in terms of contest prep. You want to start from a place of strength. And if you're having doubts in your mind, like, or if you have little niggles, or if you don't feel like you're in the best, you're not your most muscular at a certain period of time, it's not really the ideal time to start a prep. You kind of want to start when life's in a good position, all this sort of stuff. So I imagine for a lot of people, in terms of like just life outside of the gym, let alone the gym, like the gym's now going to be in a good place soon because we have them access, but the rest, like their career or life, they haven't seen friends, family, they haven't, maybe their career's in question or they're searching for a job. I don't know what it is. There could be a lot of people who are in that kind of, not that position where they can be as selfish. I talked to Eric Trexler yesterday on the podcast, and he is actually natural pro bodybuilder, but he hasn't competed for a long time. And he was like, it's not even in the top 10 priorities for me. Once it gets into like the top 5, I'll start thinking about it. When it's in the top 2, that's when I'll pull the trigger to do it at some stage. So I think for a lot of people, that's a nice way to think about it. Like, where is like bodybuilding, and that can be like all the other like bikini, men's physique, everything else. Where is that in your priority list? And if it's right down there, then it's not a good time to like, because it needs to be up there for you to actually like give it a good go, because you can't just do it. There's very few people, I know there's like random like genetic outliers who can just do it on a whim. They're just like shredded year round. They're like, yeah, I'll do a mini cut and then I'll step on stage.
Yeah. I've actually talked to a few people out of competing in the last week or so, which is quite interesting. Okay. I've had some people reach out to me and describe their current life circumstance and said they've always wanted to compete, and they like, now the gyms are opening and stuff, they want to do it. And I've kind of said, in all honesty, based on what you've described to me, I do not think that competing is a good idea for you right now. Like, for example, people saying like, oh, I'm not employed right now, but I will be soon. And I haven't trained properly for a year because I've had no motivation. And they're probably like 20, 30 pounds over where they need to be. And you're like, yeah, it's just not worth it. Just do it next year. Don't try and do a year's worth of dieting in like 6 months. Just do it in a year.
That's such a good point. I think a lot of people do use a prep as like and I don't know if it's necessarily wrong, but I don't think it leads to the best results, where they use it as like a kick up the arse, like, oh, I'm way out of shape and like not happy with stuff, so I'm gonna like start a prep, because it's like that's the most extreme thing you could decide to go and do for your body, when you probably just need like a shorter term goal. Don't injure yourself again, Harry. We need you fit and healthy.
Okay. It's just the recliner just broke on my chair, so I was leaning on the like lock setting, and then all of a sudden it just threw me backwards like that. But yeah, sorry, Steve.
No, it's all right. So yeah, I guess for you, the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere and having that social support and everything can be really huge. And like, yeah, in an ideal world, I guess this is part of why you get the guys that go to Q8 and they go to like Oxygen Gym, and they like literally are in like a bodybuilding like camp, and it's just surrounded by people who are doing the same thing as you, and it's just like eat, train, sleep, like repeat, and like that could foster the best result. But not everyone has such a possibility in it, but it is a small thing that could really go a long way for a lot of people. And I don't know, this might be interesting, because for the listeners who don't know, I obviously coached you for quite a while, and then I haven't done since basically the prep was not sure. So when you talked about kind of maintenance, it was that point where you were like, I'm not sure coaching right now is like something that, I don't know, I want to continue doing, which is absolutely fine. I wonder if
you're going to pressure me into committing to coaching again.
No. I was going to say whether or not you think over that time having some accountability and support would have changed any of what happened there, or if you don't think that would have been the case. Because I just wonder, because I guess you've coached people through this period of time. And I think for a few of my guys, and I can't say like, I don't know, like I've helped them achieve these goals and they wouldn't have done it on their own during this period of time. But I think for some of them, they really would have backslid if they didn't have that accountability and support. I wonder if you've ever thought about that.
I have actually thought about it a lot. I was thinking about it recently, because obviously the gyms are opening and stuff like that. I've been considering, will I get more out of everything if I have that accountability again?
Yeah.
I've been essentially trying to figure out if I'm in the right place to kind of handle it. And I think one of the reasons why I stopped coaching in the first place was because I felt like all of a sudden I went from like 0 stressors to like 100 stressors in my life at the same time. And then I found that coaching became a stressor and not something that was a relief from that. And then as soon as it reached that point, it's no detriment to your coaching. As we know, like we have clients say the same stuff to us all the time. It suddenly felt like it was another thing on the to-do list rather than something I was doing for enjoyment and stress relief. And that's what it had always been up to in that point. Up to that point, coaching had always been, and my training and nutrition had always been like the thing that I protect at all costs. And then it became something that I wasn't able to protect just based on the other things because it went from like top 3 priorities, and over the course of like a week got knocked down to like number 9 or 10. And then I just felt like I needed to get on top of everything else first, because I was in a position where, like, you know, like the analogy of like spinning plates, every plate was spinning nicely so I could apply my attention to that. And then all of a sudden, like all the plates started falling down and I had to get them all spinning again. And I am in a position now where everything's kind of spinning. So I have been considering it, but I think there's yes and no. I think, and definitely I could have got more out of it and could have stayed more accountable in some periods. But I still feel like the injury is that I don't like calling tendonitis an injury because it's not really. It's like an overuse thing. I would say, like, I guess that would likely have derailed both of us, because I needed to consult with Mike, our physio, quite a lot to get on top of that. Yeah. And I actually needed to, in the end, go and actually get some treatment for it, as in like go and see a friend of mine who was a local physio who could actually do some massage and stuff. And massage has always been something I was a bit dubious of, because not because I don't think it works, just because I don't understand how it works. So I'm a bit like, if I can't apply A plus B equals C causality, I really struggle to understand the value of something.
Yeah.
And that, I can't believe it, but that actually helped so much. I think even if it was just a placebo, it allowed me to get in there and start working on it. But I feel like I just wasn't in the right place to even apply any thought to nutrition beyond eat protein 4 times a day, eat loads of fruits and veggies, and until recently. And interestingly, I was going to talk to you guys about it on the podcast. I've actually just signed up for a meal prep service for like the next month, because I'm going back into training people in person, and I have quite a lot of clients at the moment. And food is something that I've always I've always been able to get myself in the shape that I want to get into, and always been able to manipulate calories and macros and stuff like that. But I thought to myself, like, this, I have so much going on. I don't want to let the ball slip there. So I decided to just sign up for that and go for that, so that I can have that aspect of my life sorted for me. So yeah, I think all in all, there's definitely pros and cons to continuing coaching. And as a whole, it probably would have been a net positive. But I just could not give it the time that I wanted to. And that's one of the things I love about our clients with Revive Stronger, because obviously I used to be one. They put coaching so high on their priorities, and that we hold ourselves so accountable and set such high standards for ourselves, because we really appreciate the coaches that we're working with, that I felt like I would be letting you down, not necessarily letting myself down. And that was the primary reason for, I guess, not carrying on. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really, thank you for talking through it. I know I kind of put you on the spot there, and but it's really interesting to hear that perspective, especially from like where you are. And I literally just had someone drop off, and again, it wasn't for like the only reason was they're going through a really busy time with work, and work is a massive priority, and the bodybuilding shifted right down, and they're just like, I can't give you what you'd almost need. And I think some people think like the coach does the job and I'm just the client and results will come my way. And there's a lot that's on the coach, like the client's end, like we need to hear, and it needs to be a priority for that person. And especially when it's like, this is a luxury, right? We don't charge like, I don't know, 30 quid, 40 quid for our coaching. It's something that they're really having to invest quite a lot into. And so if they feel like, oh man, it's just a cost benefit analysis there, they could be like, I'm investing all this money into this. It could be like, even for me, if Audible, for example, cost £100 a month, I'd be like, fuck, I'm canceling that right now, because I have like 5 credits that I haven't used for a long time and I'm barely listening at the moment. So
I've got a funny story about Audible I can say when you're done talking.
But it's cheap, so I've let it continue going. And if our coaching was really cheap, maybe like clients would just continue, but then you just don't use it as much. Like I'm not using Audible now. Whereas if it was really expensive, I probably would either be really getting the most out of it, or I just cancel it because I can't use that at the time. But go ahead and say your story, Harry.
About 4 years ago, I've had Audible for ages. About 4 years ago, I remember I got my like new check-in day, and new credit day. And I thought, I'll go and buy a book. And you have to do it on the browser on your phone, don't you? Like you can't do it in the app. So
you can't on Apple, but you can on Android. It's super annoying.
It's because Apple wants to take a cut of it, isn't it? But anyway, so it said I had like 1 credit, and I bought the book I wanted, and then it still said I had 1 credit. I was like, okay, that's weird. So then I bought another book, and it still said I had 1 credit. And then I proceeded to do it another 40 times. And then I still have books that I bought then, like 5 years ago, when it just had a bug where it just wasn't using the credit. And then I told Hannah, my girlfriend, about it, and she did the same. And she ended up buying a load of books. And then my mum did the same. But then my mum felt bad and then returned all her books. But yeah, so I still have books that I haven't read that I purchased at that time. And I remember like thinking to myself, like Audible's broken. But yeah, so it was for about 12 hours as well. It was like a whole day. It was just not letting me buy whatever I wanted.
That's ridiculous. I know on Audible, someone told me, and I've done it a couple of times, you can return books and you get a credit back. That's like, that should happen. So you just like, I don't know, I didn't enjoy it or something. You can read the whole thing or listen to the whole thing even, and then you return it, you get your credit back. But I mean, I have 5 credits. They've just built up over time. So I don't need to start returning things. I just start listening to things. Actually, on Audible, you talked about placebo. I'm still listening to a book like all on placebos. And it's just ridiculous how powerful the placebo can be and how powerful the mind is. Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
I think that's a big thing that links into the gym environment and stuff.
It does,
yeah. I spent a year telling myself that I'm really looking forward to it, and so have other people. I think it's going to be a really, really good time for training over the next few months.
One of my clients just asked, like, do you think there's something to the going back into the gym and I'm going to see some like spike in muscle growth because of like a better stimulus? And I was like, well, like it depends on a lot of stuff. Like, what have you been doing? How have you been applying yourself from home? And I was like, at the end of the day, I want you to think that yes, you're going to see some like big spike in muscle growth. It's going to be amazing. And I was just like, I think you will, because he has that kind of mindset where he thinks there's something special about the gym and the equipment that's going to give him. So I was just like, yeah, like definitely. I'm excited to see what you're going to look like in a few months, because you're going to get that spike of growth from like a better stimulus. But yeah, it's fascinating, all of that. Yeah, I didn't have a particular topic for us to cover this week. I just wanted to delve into a bit of what Harry was up to, give people an understanding of like where you are. And I thought that would be interesting. I have, however, just put up a question box on Instagram, and I have one question already.
Oh, yeah.
So I could bring that up if you don't have anything more to say.
I was going to talk about placebo a bit, just because I've always struggled. Like, I think there's a real ethical dilemma with placebo as well.
There is, yeah.
Like, hyping someone up is a great way to boost motivation, boost adherence. But then it's like, yes, it can technically boost your results, but is it unethical for me to hype you up and say that it could boost your results? So I've always struggled with that. When, like you say, like that particular client who's saying like, am I going to experience a crazy surge of progress? And it's like, if you say no, you're killing the placebo effect. But if you say yes, it could well lead to better results. It's a bit like, I've always thought it's a really interesting ethical dilemma that critical thinking can never solve, because there's always a counter argument to it. But that's all I was going to add.
It's like all the, what are they called, like the different herbs, and is it Japanese medicine or something where they use a lot of, and there's even like stores where they have like all these different
homeopathic
herbs. Stuff like that. Or even like you said, massage, or people have these like Theraguns or whatever they are, the massage guns, or I don't know, people have the Epsom salt bath or whatever. Like people like, or these recovery methods, whatever it is, or it could be a pre-workout that just has like poor dosing, but you just think it's like, this is going to mega hype me up. As well. This influencer was like bigging it up, so it's going to like blow my head off.
I see that quite a lot with the pre-workouts. Like loads of people I know locally in my gym and stuff, like proper buy into pre-workouts. And then like 5 years ago, I might have messaged them and been like, it's not really doing anything. But now I'm like having a better understanding of the placebo effect. I'm like, you know what? If he thinks that pre-workout is giving him superpowers, then it is giving him superpowers. So,
yeah, I think I can even remember my best mate. We were just like drinking, and we were giving him non-alcoholic beers, and he was just like progressively getting like more and more leery, more and more like out of control. And we're just like, this is doing nothing for you. Like, why are you being this way? It's just hilarious to see someone do that. So yeah, it's big. It is big. Should we get to some of these questions?
Yeah, let's do it. Start in.
So we have one from Mika. He asked, would you weigh in before body weight exercises such as pull-ups and dips?
No. I'm really good at answering the questions in one-word answers, aren't I?
He then went on to say, how many hours do you wait before the set? Okay, this is a different question.
Okay. So generally, I don't think it's relevant, to be honest. As long as like the more we focus on physique development, the less important the load is, I find. You could almost, at least in my opinion, you could almost coach people without knowing what the load is, provided that they're chasing the right sort of sensation and the reps in reserve. That's my opinion, at least. Like often my clients will see, and I talk about this quite a lot with the clients, their load decreases meso to meso, because I still track load on the spreadsheet. So you see like over time, often from when we start working together for over the first like 9 months, the volume generally drops, but the training quality goes up like that. So the stimulus per set that they get goes up massively, but the load that they use on each set generally goes down because they're improving their technique and stuff. So I'd say like, do you need to know what, like if you say did pull-ups on Monday and you weighed 80 kilos and then the next week you weigh 81 kilos and you got pull-ups again, like does it matter whether you're 80 or 81? I don't think it matters that much, provided that you're just pushing for performance increases.
Interesting. So my default answer was different, but you've come at it from an angle that I absolutely understand. This happens, like I used to really want to track people's weights and have like a spreadsheet where I had like, I don't know, their bent over rows over time, and I could see like their estimated 1 rep max over time. But that presumes that nothing is changing in terms of the quality. And I don't know what the unfortunately or fortunately, but a lot of the time people just massively improve their quality when I'm training them, like you said for yourself as well, Harry. And even for myself, like I look at my squats now and I'm like, I'm actually not squatting necessarily much more load than previously, but they look night and day different. Or like bent over rows, great example. Like my bent over rows when I was like, I don't know, 18, I probably was using quite a bit, even more load than I'm using now. But
I remember being proud of a 105 kilo 1 rep max bent over row when I was about 18.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't film it.
I think once you have that in check, I would argue that having your body weight becomes more important, because now that is more relevant. So once you've got the quality in check, now if you don't track your body weight, you might falsely, I don't know, think you're not progressing when you're in a mass and your body weight is going up, like you said, and your reps just maintain week to week, and you're like, oh, I can't add load, and my RAR is coming down week to week. And it's like, you are adding load, you're getting heavier.
Yeah, I was looking at it from the perspective of I already knew what my body weight was because I would have recorded it in the morning anyway.
Okay, so you're like, you don't need to weigh in before your session. To then, that to me is past the point of helpful. But that's like your morning weigh-in, use that data. Cool.
Yeah, like I tell clients, because I've been asked that before, like, should I write down precisely what my weight is? And I say, like, well, your weight's not going to change a great deal over the course of the meso, so it doesn't really matter if you leave that cell blank. We just know you're working with your body weight on that session, which is easy to find anyway.
Yeah.
What's the second part of the question?
It was not related to that question, but it was asking, I think more so to me, how many hours do you wait before your second workout? Hey, have you ever tried any twice daily training? Because obviously you had your home gym. I don't know if you ever tried it.
I did, and I couldn't keep up with it. It wasn't improving my life. It was making it worse. So I stopped it.
That's absolutely fair enough. I can see how it could do that, because for me, it's like a refreshing break in a sense. But I can definitely see, especially when you're really busy and when you haven't got a good structural routine, it could just be like paralyzing. Like, it's just like, fuck, I haven't actually got time to do this second session.
Yeah, that's what kept happening.
Done it earlier.
And then like I said before, I'm really bad with my nutrition scheduling. I'm good at getting the calories in, but I'm not very good at spacing out in a structured way. And training twice a day is almost wholly dependent on you having good nutrition structure as well. So it just wasn't going very well. Sometimes I wouldn't even have had a chance to eat between the sessions. And I was like, what am I doing here? Right.
I never asked, but it might be interesting for people, and I'm interested. The meal delivery service that you're getting, can you say who it is? Can we give them I guess you can't review it yet.
I'm paying for it. So it's not like, so I did a Google search. I looked at all of the top ones and I calculated the price per meal. And then I calculated the ongoing cost of the service if I was to keep up with it. And then you can tell the way my brain works. And then I did essentially compared all the different meals and thought what ones actually make sense and what ones just look like someone has not put any care into it. Because one of the meal prep companies, I can't remember the name, it was like you picked your proteins and your veggies and your carbs randomly, and it automatically assigned one per meal. And so you could end up with like really like foods that don't make any sense to be in the same meal, if that makes sense. Like I think one of them was like pasta and a beef burger and then like maybe like peas, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. So I didn't go with that one, even though they were the cheapest. And I went with a company called Prep Perfect, who they were the more expensive one, but when I compared them to the next best competitor, based on the frequency of meals I wanted, it was actually cheaper, because I wanted to do a month of meals. But when I did like the full month on one meal, it added on one company, it added an extra snack a day that I didn't want. And it said it was free. But when I actually calculated the cost, it wasn't free. It was charging you for it. And then the other company, they couldn't deliver when I wanted it, which is why I didn't go with them. So I went with Prep Perfect, but their meals actually sounded pretty nice.
Yeah.
So, and I don't care if it tastes nice or not. I just don't want it to taste awful. Because if it is really nonsensical, like I said, like the beef burger with pasta and peas, it's not going to make me want to eat it, and it's just going to sit in the fridge. But yeah, the main reason I'm doing it is to force me into a better nutrition structure. But I'm hoping I'm not going to get dependent on it.
Is this like 2 meals a day and they like
2 meals a day, 7 days a week? Yeah, once a week delivery.
All
and then that breakfast is the easiest meal to sort yourself, because it's going to be the same every day. And then dinner is the sociable meal that I'm going to be eating with Hannah anyway. So I felt like I'd be a really bad boyfriend if I did like the full like 4 meals a day and just left her to fend for herself. But what was I going to say? I can't really remember what my last point was going to be.
That sounds like I can see that working nicely actually for a lot of people, especially as a personal trainer. Like that's super handy to just have those. You
know, when you coached me as well, like one of the things you always told me off about was leaving two big gaps between meals. And I feel like that's the normal lifestyle of a personal trainer. Like you block all your clients together in like a 4 or 5 hour period of time, and you can't think about anything, let alone like other than the person in front of you for that period of time. And then, I just found that I don't want to get back into that schedule again. So I want to get on top of it from day one rather than trying to constantly catch up all the time.
And then I imagine if people end up relying on like protein bars or buying sandwiches from like Tesco.
Not telling me off, but always saying like, is there a better use of your calories you could have here other than a protein bar? Like not eating for like 8 hours and then have a protein bar. That's because they're available in the gym, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So I can see, And I can see how eventually, I keep seeing adverts for HelloFresh. They're like on YouTube, every fucking advert's HelloFresh. And they're like, oh, I save money because I don't have to drive to the supermarket and like buy more than I need. And it's like, they just give me exactly what I need and I put it in. And I'm like, that sounds quite good. But I think you even tried one of those, right?
We did Gusto, and it was really good. But again, the problem is the preparing the food. It was like so we took like a few of the meals that we really liked, and then we ended up just buying those things from the supermarket. But there was the other aspect to the reason. One of the motivators for getting Gusto in the first place was that Hannah and I throw away so much food, and I feel like lots of people end up throwing away a lot of food, and that either means that we're not using the food that we're buying effectively, or we're overbuying, or both. And then I calculated as well, looking into the cost of the meal prep service. So I think it's going to cost about 280 odd quid for the month. But based on my normal food bill, and if I remove the foods that I won't be buying because I'm prepping for this, the extra cost only worked out to be about 60 odd quid in the month.
Wow.
So it was kind of like, so it's not that expensive. Like you might look at the meal prep and think like, oh, it's like 300 quid. That's really expensive. But because I'm not going to be doing, because I eat probably 80% of the food that we buy every week anyway. So if we remove that from the weekly shop, then the cost difference isn't that different.
And then you just like that 60 quid, the time, like, I don't know, a couple of hours, you've already saved like, and you have to meal prep. That takes quite a bit of time every time. So I can see that being a big win. Do you get to pick like macros, or do they give you like a...
No, I didn't get to pick. You can pick macros with some of them, but the price goes up really high when you do that.
Okay.
But then I looked at like what the standard macros of the meals are, and they tend to be about between 30 and 40 protein, between 0 and 20 fat, and then between 30 and 60 carbs.
Decent.
So that's where I would put them at anyway. So there's no point paying bespoke for what the standard is. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't answer. That was I
forgot what the question was.
But he was basically asking how long do I wait between workouts. And so I train, normally my first workout is around 10:30, and then my next one's normally around 3:30. So it's like 5 hours, normally around that sort of time. On weekends, the one workout that lands there, I basically like wait half an hour, and then I do my PM one just to get it like out the way. So like I get most of my weekend, because that's the most annoying one. Whereas in the week, it's like, well, I'm not doing anything anyway, especially work, like being at home. There's no issue there. So next is, it's not a great question, so I'm not going to ask that one, unfortunately. It makes no sense. Marcus Gavelli has asked, most common challenge with clients in terms of training? Good question.
I feel like there's a collection of common challenges. There probably isn't one specific to everyone. I guess the one, I wouldn't call it a challenge, but something that we all do with every client, and I know I can confidently speak for you here, is that we always massively improve their training quality of every exercise that they do. And I guess that usually comes from drawing the focus away from the load and like turning training from an external focus into an internal focus. So that was the thing that I probably end up doing all the time with everyone.
I think one, in addition to that, I sometimes get people where actually, and recently I've had people where I'm like, I ask for form videos, they send them in, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, everything's amazing. And I'm like, I literally can't add anything here. Sometimes you can add small things.
I think that's a product of the industry changing though, and the product of guys like yourself and like Renaissance periodization and stuff like that, almost like popularizing good technique. Because when I first got into bodybuilding, like all the videos you found was of people just like Ronnie Coleman, for example, just throwing around weights they got no business throwing around, and then you end up emulating that in your own training. So I think it is cool to see the industry moving that way. Yeah,
it is really cool. And I mean, even to give a shout out to like the company, N1. I was thinking N stood for something, but it's not. N1 is what they stand for. So like N1 training, where they've really gone into some of the like nuances with the anatomy. I worry sometimes it goes too far that the other way, where people, and you can easily, like, you need to find that middle ground, which I think is sometimes like,
when you exchange intensity for precision,
you can go too far that way. But anyway, what I was going to talk about, in addition to the one you said there, was unfortunately I have a number of clients who get into this more is better mentality, especially when you consider like evidence-based bodybuilding, I guess, and you talk about kind of that volume is like a key driver for hypertrophy, and it's a dose response, and like people hear that and their ears prick up and they're like, more is better. And that unfortunately can take away from quality. I always talk about it. I think I actually heard it from Valentin Tambosi, he did like a video over on his IG, and he spoke about like, imagine you have a to-do list and there's 20 things on that list. It's a lot of things to do. Are you going to give everything all of your effort? Are you going to like, I don't know, like do a half-assed job for some of it? And you're probably going to do a bit of a half-assed job. But if you've got like 2 things on your to-do list or 5 things, whatever it is, you're going to be able to really nail those down. So I really took that to heart and kind of started talking to that with my clients. And for some of them, it just clicked a little bit where they're like, yeah, sometimes I do find I'm saving myself and I'm kind of falsely thinking I'm pushing hard, whereas I'm just worried because I've got so much to do. So for some people, especially when we initially start, like I strip them right back, which is why I really like kind of thinking about minimum effective volume anyway, because a lot of people are already at like, I don't know, right before their MRV sort of numbers, and they're just statically staying around 20 sets or something. And I'm like, no, we're going to strip right back to like 6 to 8 even for some people, and then we can build from there. And yeah, I find some people really struggle with that, and they kind of just think about soreness, and they're like, if I'm not sore, then I add. I'm like, yes, maybe, but what is like the pump, the disruption, like how much are you getting from that already within the session? And sometimes they're already like, it's amazing. When I add more, it actually gets worse. And I'm like, we don't want to get into that situation. So that's been helpful. And that's a common one I tend to get with the people we end up working with.
Yeah, definitely. Like experimenting with minimum effective volume is how I found that I can make progress on my pecs with literally just like 1 pec exercise twice a week. Like I don't need to do like say incline press, flat press and fly in a upper body workout. I can get away with just what I say get away with. Like I can literally get away with just 1 exercise twice a week, which would be around 6 sets or 6 to 8 sets a week on pecs. So I'm quite happy with that. I wish my other muscles responded like that though.
I actually don't know where you land with this. I can't remember. I don't think you're as extreme as what some of our people I work with for hamstrings. I've literally got people who like, if they hip hinge, they can't really do much more than like 2 sets, and then they can only then leg curl in the next session. And I'm just like, and they only do like 4 sets then. It's like 6 sets is like there where they normally land.
I totally go away from local fatigue to general fatigue after about 2.5 sets of hip hinges. And I'm incapable of having any mind muscle connection in anything following hip hinges as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I kind of realized it whilst we were working together, that I'd always really, really struggle with anything after that. And remember we tried doing the leg curls first.
Yeah.
And that's something I do almost exclusively now. Like I had the quality of my leg curls is so poor after hip hinges that for me, it's not worth the trade-off of doing them afterwards. So I like to do them first just because at least I have some kind of mind muscle connection and can actually feel disruption in them. And as quads are a much higher priority to me currently than glutes and hamstrings are, because I feel like my glutes respond to anything. I know you know how that feels. So with my next block, moving back into the gyms, actually, it's both leg sessions are starting with quad stuff first.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing any, what I'd call like barbell hip hinges. I'm going to be experimenting with some hyperextensions and stuff like that, just because I find that, the hip hinges have really been flooring me, especially since I had to take time off of them because of the elbow tendonitis and stuff like that. I've really struggled to introduce them back in.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, hyperextensions, I think, are generally an underrated like hip hinge. I think people often, and I often just think of like good mornings, RDL, straight leg deadlift, and then I'm like, variations of those. But the hip, like, especially for people who get smashed from RDLs or like they're quite advanced and they want to, I don't know, put
I've got a theory for why I get smashed by hip hinges though. I've got like when you look at my body proportions, my spine is relatively long compared to my leg length.
Right.
So when I'm in a hip hinged position, like my torso is very long and my shoulders are quite far forwards of the bar without me intentionally wanting them to be, which I think puts a lot of stress, a lot of forces through my lower back. And I struggle quite a lot to maintain good technique throughout a set, unless I reduce the load to what I consider to be meaningless load.
Right.
And I've always preferred, and like I remember when we worked together, like, and we had like the quality rating of different exercises and doing glute ham raises. So like the kind of CrossFit machine where you do like, it's almost like the way I did it, at least, was like a extended range of motion, like a back extension, a hyper extension, which would then turn into like a GHR. And that is the best exercise I've ever done for like hamstrings and glutes and calves. Even like my whole posterior chain is like so pumped after that, and it has next to no kind of systemic fatigue. So stimulus to fatigue is so good on that exercise for me. So I want to get back into doing that.
Have you ever tried machine sissy squats?
Not with the current training quality I have now.
Okay.
Last time I tried them was when I didn't really understand how to recruit my quads. So I wouldn't really have got much out of them.
Just for me, that sounds similar to what you're saying there. Like, it's just the SFR, like there's like minimal systemic fatigue, but the quads are just like absolutely ridiculously wrecked from it. So, but anyway, I'll get to the next question because we've ended up on a tangent, but that's all right. So the next one is from Warren Mitchell PT. He said, top three. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, we talk a lot. Yeah.
Top three pieces of advice for new coaches. Where did you go wrong? We fucked up, man.
Listen to last week, the last coaching corner. That we spoke about this quite a lot in that.
Oh, like the top advice you give. Can you summarize it?
No, because my brain doesn't work. What's the question again? So top three pieces of advice for a new PT.
Yeah.
You don't need to do. Actually, I had a conversation with a guy the other day. Actually, he asked me for advice, and my advice was you don't need to do any extra courses. Like focus on. I said this in the coaching point as well. Focus on building your business. Like, you already have enough. The fact you're certified and you're even following us, as arrogant as that sounds, means that you already know enough to get incredible results with your clients. So don't go spending thousands and thousands of pounds or dollars or euros more on courses that are only that you're just using to justify your own insecurities about not knowing enough. Well, you do know enough already. Just get started with clients, and the money that you would have spent on all those courses, just keep that in your business and let it improve the business. And you can do the coaches. But I think I myself, I did this wrong. I got it the wrong way around. I tried to do all the knowledge-based courses first when that's not what I needed. What I needed to do was actually get a secure business built and like in place and running itself, quite very much like Revive Stronger, like where you have other coaches working for you and stuff like that. And then I can worry about trying to improve my knowledge and learning all the minute details and things that generally don't affect anything.
Yeah, I think I can remember when I was a one-on-one PT, it was particularly obvious. Like you'd get personal trainers and you have their like picture in their bio or whatever, and it's like they've got every accreditation going, and I'm just like what if someone came, they were just like, I don't know, they'd be a bit confused if you just have like, I don't know, I'm just a hypertrophy specialist, whatever, fat loss and hypertrophy are like my things. If someone wanted that, they're going to go for the person with just that rather than like the kitchen sink. It reminds me of like, I don't know, a kebab shop that does like pizza, like hot dogs.
Never
like
get a pizza
everything
from a kebab shop.
Yeah. Don't go somewhere that has like everything. You want to go like to just a restaurant that prioritizes on, like specialize on that one thing. So no, I think that's a great piece of advice. I struggled for like a new personal trainer. For me, the thing that I didn't really realize when I was getting into it was like the business part, which wasn't very well explained. And I had no strategy of how to pick up clients. It was just like, I was an introverted, shy person, and I didn't know how to like approach people in the gym. It's like those skills just are not taught at all. So I found that really challenging at the start.
I still don't really get in many leads from inside the gym with my offline business. Like it's most definitely Instagram that fuels my client base for the gym as well.
That's
but I feel like it's only because I guess where I'd go with that is that don't force yourself to do the things you know you're not good at. I know that sounds a bit generic, but like I was like yourself, like I didn't like the idea of almost like trying to pounce on people inside on the gym floor itself, because I felt like I would be not irritated, but just like I wouldn't appreciate someone trying to sell me when I'm trying to focus on my workout.
Yeah.
And I'd say like focus on the things you're good at, like yourself. Like you come across brilliantly on social media, so it makes sense for you to have doubled down and put all of your efforts into social media to gather clients. And I think I was pretty much the same. Like I could communicate who I was and what my values were and who I wanted to work with a lot better through the medium of Instagram or Facebook than I could through the medium of me like standing at the desk trying to convince people that they need me.
Yeah, I think if I think back to what helped me grow initially was just actually showing my knowledge and skills through when I didn't have someone to show it like a client. It was just like I was my work in that sense. And that's how I got my initial clients, were like people like, oh man, you got shredded, or like you talk about your journey and what you're doing and why you're doing it. That sounds really interesting. I think I need some of that. That's how I got my initial clients. So I think for a coach who doesn't have anything, like you are your like piece of work in that sense, which can be challenging. And that's only the start. Once you've got clients, then you can talk more about the clients, which is something I've tried to be better at on my Instagram, is not just talking about me and trying to talk more about like what I'm doing for others. Cause I think also it helps other people learn, like, and coaches learn maybe about how to approach that as well.
Yeah,
but I have more questions. So Robbie Prince PT says, low back pump always the limiting factor on hip hinges or squats. Interesting that this has just come up. Any recommendations?
I don't actually get the crazy low back pump on hip hinges.
Okay.
But I have experienced it. And it's a funny thing, because like a good example of it is if you take someone who's never done hyperextensions before and try and teach them hyperextensions, they'll get like a bone cracking lower back pump and they won't be able to walk properly. And it's not a bad thing, but I feel like because the lower back muscles are there's so many muscles in such a small space, when one of them swells up loads, it puts loads of pressure on all the ones around it. And then that makes you feel like you're like walking a bit like that afterwards. But I guess what that tells me is that you're likely, there's likely a lot of spine movement happening in your hip hinges, a lot more spinal movement than we'd want, and perhaps not as much hip movement as we'd want. What would you think about that?
Yeah, I think I agree. It's when people don't, I was just thinking about your example on the hyperextension, because when I first was doing them, like I was moving more at the lower back, whereas now I know how to hinge at the hips. So I'd want to see from Robbie is like, what does his technique actually look like before? Like that's got to be number one, where you can see hips are moving back. And yeah, like you said, you want to make sure that lower back is either arched or certainly in neutral and not rounding at all.
That's where good mornings can come in as a good exercise for a block for this guy, Robbie, because I like doing good mornings with some of my in-person clients, because sometimes when you're struggling to coach the like RDL and the hip hinge movement effectively, when you get someone to do good mornings, if they don't have the right spine position, the bar will just roll up their neck and it will hurt. So yeah, it's kind of like forces you to learn how to do it properly.
And it really forces you to brace properly as well, because if you don't brace on it, like with the weight in the position that it's in, you will just like, your back will just like completely bend in half. So I find for good mornings, like all of the hip hinges, but particularly good mornings, like I have to really brace. And if I don't, then that's when my back, especially when you're loading it properly, like heavily, that's when lower back kind of issues can start coming in.
Even if you use a good morning just as a warm-up part of the hip hinge workout, like even if you don't want to make it the primary movement, if you say did like 2 sets of hip hinges for like 6 to 8 reps, you would know straight up if your spine is extended or flexed when you're doing it, because of the way that the movement feels.
And obviously, like, make sure to record it and look back. Sometimes I know I tried to do recently, I was like, I didn't really want to go to good mornings for some reason, but I needed to rotate straight leg deadlifts out. So I wanted to try deficit straight leg deadlift, and I did it in my deload, and I was like, oh, that felt pretty good. And I watched back the recording, and I was like, yeah, my lower back I haven't got the mobility for a deficit right now. So sometimes it can feel like it's okay as well. And then you look back and you're like, I'm doing something a bit off there. So I think that, yeah, anyway, we can get to another question then. Hopefully that kind of answered that one. For squats, what about squats actually? You said
that's the same thing. Probably the same thing applies. Probably too much spine movement in the squat. So you want to work on your bracing, definitely.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And if you're not already, make sure you're elevating your heels, because that will help with that. And perhaps program like Smith squats for a while. Maybe you didn't have access to a gym, which is why you've been doing squats. But yeah, I'd say if you're going back into a gym next week, program Smith squats for a while, because they'll force you to stay a lot more upright. And then when you're in the Smith machine, you can kind of feel the way the rest of your body's moving a lot more, because you're not having to concentrate on stabilizing the bar. So if you have in mind what your spine's doing when you're under the bar in the Smith machine, you'll probably feel if you're like snaking it a little bit.
I think I used to get some lower back, not pumps, but some discomfort. And that was, bracing was one thing. And I just kind of, I think also I wouldn't necessarily hold the brace until full depth. And that was where like butt wink would come in. So if you're seeing butt wink and you're getting the discomfort in your lower back, I think combined, that's where you want to be, like, just come down to the point where you're not butt winking, where the lower back isn't rounding under you slightly, because I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's...
It's only a bad thing if it's causing pain.
Yeah, exactly.
In my opinion, yeah.
So that's the way I tend to look at it as well. So, and for that, like heel lifts massively help. And like you said, if you're doing low bar, like you're going to feel it more in your posterior chain. You're going to feel it more in your lower back. If you're doing like a powerlifting style squat. So if you can change it more to like a high bar, heel raised, really chest high style of squat, I think that would definitely help.
Well, the like in-person coach in me would, because I've had to fix this with loads of people, not fix, but I've worked on it with loads of people. The majority of people were going too wide with their squat stance for their mobility. Yep. So I'd say bring your feet into shoulder width, even though that sounds scary, just try it. It probably works, particularly males, because of our anatomy and the way our legs go, like, and hips work. You'd probably find it a lot easier to go shoulder width apart on your squats to start with.
Cool. I don't know if I want to ask this one. Actually, no, I will, because I think you've dabbled in this. So,
what is this?
Johan Tubau has asked neck training exercises. You have dabbled, right?
Yeah.
I have nothing here really.
Is that what we just said? Just neck exercises?
Yeah, he just said neck training exercises, question mark. So you can decide how you want to answer that.
I see the value of it. And I do think that your neck has some like hypertrophy potential, just like any other muscle. But my experience of neck training was that I never wanted to do it. And it was a really unpleasant experience, because when you're doing the neck exercises, it causes like the blood to rush into your head. And if anyone's ever spent any time upside down, and that feeling of having a head pump is really unpleasant. And also things I noticed was obviously you have like your carotid artery and stuff like that in there. When you actually have a pump in the neck muscles, it feels like someone's applying some pressure to your, at least in my experience, it felt like someone's applying pressure to like my windpipe and a little bit to here. And it almost just felt like for like the 15 minutes afterwards, like someone had a loose grip on my neck. It was a really uncomfortable experience. And I found that it actually did create some acute anxiety, like what I'd consider to be a physical anxiety, not like a mental anxiety, if that makes sense. Just like the feeling you'd get if you felt like your airway was being slightly restricted. And generally I just found it annoying, and it took a lot of time to do. And I didn't notice, I did it for probably about 2 mesocycles in all reality. So I probably didn't give it enough chance to actually see if there was any real growth. But I found the experience unpleasant enough that I didn't want to carry it on. So that'd be my, I guess, experience of that. If you do some kind of fight sport, then I would prioritize it, because you need to have the stronger neck muscles to support yourself. But then you might benefit more from isometric neck training rather than actual like hypertrophy based neck training, because big muscles aren't necessarily stronger.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I know it's talked about a lot as in like it's an aesthetic thing, like a pencil neck doesn't look great, whereas a thick neck
you could just juice because of the androgen receptors in your neck and your traps. So
yeah, they often, part of it is they get issues with sleep apnea, and that can cause some issues. So I don't know if as a natural you're gonna get into that zone, but I guess it's something to think about. I was just imagining like a quad pump, chest pump. If you got like the equivalent neck pump, I just feel like whoa, that'd be super uncomfortable.
And you can hear your heartbeat as well. Because obviously, like you have the veins and stuff in there. That was another thing I didn't like about it, was like I'd finish the set. I'd do it like a my rep style, really. I'd do like straight from like the lateral flexion stuff to the normal flexion extension, and just do it all in the circuit. And then like as I'd finish, you'd hear like dum 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 about your heartbeat in your head, and I just didn't find it a very pleasant training experience. And then I used to do it at home as well, because when I did it at the gym, I just got fed up with side eye from people, but also probably about 5 people every time would ask me why I'm doing it and what I'm doing. And then it's like, it was just annoying at the end of the day, because when you're like, do I look like I'm in a position to talk to you right now? Like I'm kind of doing that.
You're that guy in the gym that everyone's just like, right.
Yeah. So anyone that was like over 40 looked like they were massively concerned for my health and my sanity. And then, I just didn't really like it.
I sometimes, even when I was training forearms in the gym, sometimes a bit like, do people just think I don't know, like, just like, what's this guy doing training his forearms? So
I don't think that gets judged that much.
Not as much as neck. Yeah, necks. I think, some people understand it. Some people are just like, what the hell? Like,
and you get the people that think that there's still that mindset. I think it's dying out with our parental generation, but who think that your neck is like the most fragile thing on the planet, and that you're hanging a chain from it, you're guaranteed to cause yourself some permanent injuries.
And it's weird, because I've actually shown Charlotte about like thick necks versus thin necks, and she's just like, thick necks she just thinks they look weird. And whereas when I look at it, I kind of like when they do the thick neck versus thin neck. I like the. I
think it looks aesthetic for sure. Yeah. Because you can have that, like what I call like the kind of fuckboy physique, where you've got like a great upper body and like a pencil neck, and it's generally just because someone's not mature enough in their muscularity for their neck to have thickened up yet. Like you see it a lot in like sort of very, very young men's physique competitors.
Right. Okay.
Right. You know what I mean, though, don't you?
Yeah. Right. I think, but from my perspective as like a bodybuilder, your neck doesn't, like, they don't judge. They shouldn't be judging like your face, and I don't think they're looking at your neck. Traps, sure. Like your traps are something that they judge, but it's not like you can flex and show off your neck in any way, shape, or form. So
most I do feel I agree with you there, and obviously you're more experienced than me bodybuilding a hell of a lot more. But I would bet money that if you had two guys that were putting a pose off and they did a most muscular, the guy who had the more muscular neck would win the pose down. If that makes sense. So say they were comparing the two guys, they both got like equal points on stage, and they're like, right, we're just trying to finalize this. Who's got first? Who's got second? And they go inside the most muscular pose. I can't do it. Most muscular pose. I genuinely think the guy with the thicker neck could probably maybe stretch out in front of the other guy.
I need to see this like comparison where everything's the same, but they manipulate the necks.
Yeah.
But I think my perspective is like traps become before it. If you've got like small calves, that comes before it. I mean, they probably go in the same category as forearms, to be honest. Like you're not getting judged really on your forearms. I guess your arms get judged in some way.
When you look at the golden era physiques though, those were areas of the physique that they applied a lot more attention to, like forearms, calves and neck. Just in general proportions that were considered to be prize-winning proportions. Or, the golden era physiques were the best.
Who's your favorite?
Oh, I'm looking at my encyclopedia of Arnold's up there.
Oh.
I talk about this loads, like with people I've never met or spoken to on Instagram about anything other than the golden era physiques.
Okay.
But probably Serge Nogray, I think, is the best. I used to like Frank Zane, and then one day he just changed in my mind, and I think I'd pedestalized the physique so much that all of a sudden I just realized actually he's probably only about 5'6", which probably isn't very comparable for me. But I really like Serge Nugray's physique, and it's so unattainable for me.
Yeah,
so
he's
unattainable.
ridiculous.
For a start, like I have let's just say Caucasian genetics, which means I'm probably not going to get anywhere near it. And the muscle bellies are just insane. Yeah. Like his elbows come down to like his hips as well. So he's got like that much real estate for his bicep. He genuinely looks like the way that they draw Captain America in the comics, like the physique he has. It's absolutely insane. I think he's got the best by miles.
Do you keep up to date at all with like the current like?
I like the classic. I keep a little bit up to date classic physique. I think I've said it before to friends. I think Chris Bumstead has got the best physique on the planet right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, Chris Bumstead is just
well-deserved winner as well.
Yeah, the way especially since he developed his back, the way his like lats come out of his like it just the way he's put together, just like his it's just ridiculous. Like his hip to like what's it called, rib cage ratio. It's just like, and it's like, it's ridiculous. But it's not like you sometimes see guys where it's super extreme, where they almost look like, I don't know, like too small in certain areas, where he's
like an action man, like where it's like where the upper body and lower body connect. Like,
so it's just too much. Whereas he's like not that extreme, where it's like the exact perfect recipe for like aesthetics.
I don't know how much of it is his genetics and how much of it is a conscious result of the way that he designs his training. But yeah, I agree with you. His proportions are spot on, and I think like he is well deserved to have the natural Olympia. No, not natural. What would I say? Classic Olympia.
You heard it here first, guys. C-Bum is natural. So
it's about one of the only physiques, and someone else I'm not going to mention because their natural status is disputed, so I'm not going to say it, but you probably know what I mean, or if you don't, I'll tell you afterwards. They're probably the only two physiques on the planet that when I look at them, I'm like, I should juice. And I'm like, oh no, I haven't even got my nutrition under control. What's the point in even considering that shit?
I was going to go for one more question, but you've just reminded me of something which I think would be interesting, is they were talking about it. I think it was Brett Freeman shout out to Brett, not that he'll probably listen to this, but
what Brett are we talking about?
We're talking about the natural bodybuilder.
So you're saying that Brett Freeman, the online coach, isn't natural?
Bantamweight like winner. I'm trying to give, make it clear. So we're talking about, he was on the Iron Culture podcast. Is that the right name? Yeah, with Omar and Eric. Anyway, they were talking about they talked about Icarus. Do you know the Netflix documentary? And basically that guy juiced the hell out of himself and still didn't really do that well. like in the standings, and they were just talking about like someone like Bryce Lewis, who's obviously natural. If you or me were to juice ourselves to the gills, we're never going to be as strong as Bryce Lewis, just never. So it's just super interesting to think about, like, when steroids do a ton, but still, would they ever make me look like, I don't know, like the best natural pro in the world? No. Or even some of them now, like, I just would never, like, I just don't have the ability to look like them.
I think it might have been Dr. Mike who said it actually, but I think someone asked him in one of the Revive, you remember when we used to do real life meetup things? I can't remember what they're called. Seminars, that's it. So I think if someone asked him a question there, like, how do you know how you would respond to juice and if it'd be worth taking? And basically he used Jared as an example. He's like, are you already looking like a fucking god without, like, if you don't already look like a god on your natural, chances are you're not going to be a great responder to, well, you're going to respond to steroids, but you're not going to go from like looking like a last place men's physique competitor to a first place classic competitor. You might just go from last to first place men's physique.
Yeah, no, it's so true, because I think a lot of people just think it's glamorized. They're like, yeah, I'm going to look like Chris Bumstead in a couple of years. And it's like,
if you get yourself familiar with the some of the common side effects and visual signs of roids, and I work in the gym, like I do see it, then you start to see what poor genetics plus poor lifestyle plus drugs actually look like. And it's not pretty most of the time.
Thankfully,
generally, worse physique than a natural men's physique competitor, but with all the risks associated with the juice. Yeah.
Right, we've come to an hour anyway. So Harry, thank you for joining me for the hour. Hopefully people will enjoy this coaching corner just as much as any other, even though it's just the two of us. It's a little bit easier to have a back and forth with two people though, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is nice, but it's nice having a team on here. So anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Give us a comment, give us a like, go check Harry out. Harry on IG, just
trainer Harry _S.
But you can find him also if you just look at if you're following me, any one of my posts, Harry's pretty much tagged in every other one or something. So you should be able to find Harry over there. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one, guys. So take care and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.